Hello! This video demonstrates how to consume one of the available HP IDOL OnDemand APIs and query a text index from a Swift application in the Xcode playground. HP IDOL OnDemand provides format conversion, indexing, image and text analysis RESTful APIs to help the developers process unstructured data and build innovative and flexible solutions. Okay, let's open Xcode. Create a new playground, call it default playground, then click next and save it to the selected location. The project is created. In addition to UI kit, the XC playground module should be imported as well. Now let's allow to continue the code execution after the end of the top level code in order to receive asynchronous responses from API. Now let's define API key constant to hold the IDOL OnDemand API key, API protocol, API host, and the last one, API path, are the concatenation of API protocol, API host, an empty string that will be substituted by the required path later, and API key. Now let's go to the IDOL OnDemand documentation, copy and paste the protocol, API hostname, and a part of the API path. Now go to the API overview and finish our query by adding parameters for the request. Let's remove red panda and put a specifier for the text parameter value. Also a title option to make search by titles. Also we need to specify the API key parameter. Now let's initialize our API key constant by taking a key from the IDOL OnDemand API keys page. Now we are ready to define our client class. Let's name it HP IDOL OnDemand client. And it will extend an S-object protocol as well as an SURL connection data delegate protocol to make our client also be a delegate for an SURL connection, which I'm going to use to handle calls to the API. In this example, the client will communicate with the API over a secure connection. And now client has to respond to authentication challenges and set appropriate credentials for the received challenge. To make it done, let's implement the connection will send request for authentication challenge function. If the API host is equal to the challenge protection space host, the challenge sender has to use credentials created for the challenge protection space server trust and for the received authentication challenge. That's it. The next guide to implement is the connection did fail with error function to handle any possible errors that may occur. To keep it simple, let's just print out the error description. One more method to implement is the connection did receive data, and this guy is responsible to handle the received data. define a new optional variable with the type NSError, then define JSON object with the type AnyObject, and initialize it by calling a static method JSON object with data from the NSJSON serialization class. With the received data, JSON reading options that specifies that arrays and dictionaries should be created as a mutable object, and a pointer to our serialization error variable. Now let's check if the serialization error object is nil. It means no error occurred during the serialization, and if so, just print out his serialized value. Otherwise, let's print our error description. Finally, let's write our method. Name it queryTextIndex, which will accept query string parameter and make calls to API. The received query parameter has to be filtered in order to replace spaces by the plus character, since it will be sent as a parameter value. Let's define URL string property by formatting our API path constant and setting the filtered query. With the URL string, let's make the URL object. Now we need to check if the created URL is not nil, which means the URL string was properly initialized, and if it is, let's create a request object for our URL and finally the connection object. For the connection object, I'm providing the created request and the client itself as a delegate. I'm starting the connection immediately since no additional configuration is required. If the URL string is malformed, let's just print some debug information to the console. For now, our client is ready. Before testing it, let's show the assistant editor in order to see the invocation results. Okay, let's create an instance of the client and call the queryTextIndex function with the Hewlett-Packard query. Great, the client works and you can see the result in the console output. That's it, the example code is available on GitHub and you can check my blog entry for this video as well. Thanks for watching, see you next time.